A domestic and sexual assault horror story out of Clay County, Minnesota. Daniel Torrey Myles is facing 4 felony charges of attempted criminal sexual conduct, first degree, criminal sexual conduct, second degree, false imprisonment, and domestic assault. Reading from the criminal complaint, on January 21st, Daniel Torrey Myles was sentenced for domestic assault. He was released from the Clay County Jail, and the previously ordered domestic abuse no contact order was vacated. That same day, the defendant contacted the victim and was later dropped off at her apartment. The victim did not want Myles at her apartment with her and her children, but he had nowhere to go over the next 2 days, so he stayed with her. On the night of the 21st, Myles went through the victim's phone and became upset with what he saw. He made comments about killing someone and that he's in a gang. The next day, January 22nd, Myles was back at the victim's apartment and made comments that he had not had sex in 8 months and that the victim was going to give him some. The victim told the defendant she didn't want to. Myles then began pulling off the victim's clothes. During this process, he ripped her underwear, knelt on the victim's arms, and put his penis in her face. The victim was fighting. Myles would grab her by the throat and pushed her to the bed. He would also push down on the victim's face. This caused a bruise to her nose and a scrape to her eyelid. The victim was able to briefly remove herself from the situation and texted a friend for help. The Myles subsequently took her phone. Law enforcement arrived a short time later and knocked on the apartment door. Myles told the victim not to make any noise and became more violent with her. Myles covered the victim's mouth and pushed her down. During this time, the victim was unable to move or respond to law enforcement efforts to make contact with her. The victim stated she couldn't call for help when law enforcement was at the door because she thought Myles would kill her. Law enforcement eventually left, having not made contact with anyone in the apartment. After law enforcement left, Myles again attempted to have sex with the victim. The victim continued to say no. Myles again kneeled on the victim's arms and tried to make her perform oral sex. He also attempted to vaginally penetrate her. At one point, Myles commented, "If you're not going to give it, I'll have to take it." The next morning, January 23rd, the victim's phone alarm went off because she had to take her kids to school. Myles gave the victim her phone back, and again she texted her friend for help. Law enforcement arrived and was able to make contact with the victim. Myles jumped from the second-story balcony of the apartment and fled from law enforcement. He was located in a nearby church and placed under arrest. Again, that was from the statement of probable cause, the prosecutor's version of what happened in this case. Daniel Torrey Myles facing felony counts of attempted criminal sexual conduct, false imprisonment, and domestic assault. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNewZ.TV.